Greetings, my name is Dave Knowles and I welcome you to Huntsville's Technology Channel. Today I have the privilege of conducting an interview with Ken and Mike. They are officers in Afcea, the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association, and we are gathered here today to talk about their upcoming symposium on September the 15th.
Right.
Would you tell me about Afcea, please, Ken?
Okay. Afcea, the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association, is a nonprofit professional organization headquartered in Washington, D.C. It's an international organization that has chapters around the world, however most of them are concentrated in the United States. And it provides an ethical forum for members of the government, military, industry, and academia communities to come together to discuss topics of mutual interest in the areas of communications, of course, primarily from a defense nature, IT, intelligence, and global security issues, current contemporary global security issues. Here in Huntsville, we have a chapter that's a local chapter of Afcea. It's chapter 198. Our president is Vic Madura, and we have bi-monthly meetings, usually luncheon meetings, where we invite in a technical speaker to talk to the audience on topics, as I've mentioned previously. Usually have about 75 to 80 people attend these luncheons. And once a year, we hold a technical symposium. And any funds that we raise from our symposium, from golf tournaments, from our luncheons, goes into our scholarship fund. And we sponsor typically 3 scholarships a year to local high school and underclass college students who are pursuing technical careers in fields that lend themselves to communication electronics. And
it's my understanding that both you and Mike have positions of responsibility within Afcea.
Yes, I am. Mike is a vice president for our programs committee, and I am the chairman of a committee under Mike that we call our Symposium committee.
Okay, and my understanding, and of course I'm the only liberal arts guy in the room, but my understanding is that this is a very technically focused organization.
Our lunches, we try to make them substantive at a system level, so anyone can understand what's being said, but we try to have just enough technical content to make it of relevant interest to the technical professional community here that works developing the systems in these areas.
Yes. And so, Mike, how come Afcea is sponsoring a symposium on a non-military topic, specifically the tornadoes that touched down in Alabama on the 27th of April?
Well, Afcea believes that the defense of the country, the security of the country, is not just a military operation. So the stimulus for disruption on April the 27th was tornadoes. But the subject of how you deal with disasters or disruptions in the community is pertinent to the defense of the community and the security and the safety of the citizens in the community. And a lot of the communications technology now carries over from the defense side to the civilian side and vice versa. For example, a lot of radio use historically came out of the military for use in the civilian community. The internet, on the other hand, was primarily developed in academia and now is of great use in the military. So this transparency of communications and then how people control resources during disasters, I think, is appropriate subject for us to look at.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I know I've seen the agenda, and it is quite exciting. Share with me, one of you, about the different speakers that you have scheduled for this symposium. And again, the date is September the 15th.
Starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. The symposium will be hosted in the auditorium at Raytheon Company here in Huntsville in the Research Park. And what we tried to do is, and I know a lot of our local community members lived through that disaster, and you remember that 8:30 every morning there was a press conference, and this press conference was conducted down outside the Emergency Operations Center. And that's where a group of our civic leaders in a number of different areas got together and briefed the public on what was going on, and how different things were responding, the emergency responders, the utility companies, the volunteer agencies, and how they were all interacting, and where you could find different resources that you needed without power, food, ice, water, those types of things. So what we tried to do with this agenda was bring that group back together again. And so many of the people that are on the speakers on this agenda will be the same people who you heard in those press conferences, starting with our Madison County Commission Chairman, Mike Gillespie. And he was always at those symposiums. And what we try to do is we're going to start out with our political leaders. We're going to have Mike give a speech, and then we're going to hear from Mayor Battle, Mayor Finley, and Colonel Hamilton, who is the garrison commander at Redstone Arsenal, to get their perspective on how this disaster responded. And then we're going to try to pick it up and follow it chronologically. We're going to start with National Weather Service forecaster talking about how this storm came through here and what was unique that caused all this concentration of high-intensity tornadoes to strike our area and, in fact, the entire state. And what weather phenomenon led to that. And then we're going to pick it up with Rusty Russell, who is the Huntsville-Madison County EMA director, is going to give the overall perspective from the emergency management, his leadership role. And then we're going to go into who were the responders. We're going to hear from the fire department. We're going to hear from HEMC. We're going to hear from the 911 center. We're going to hear from the different people chronologically that responded, and then we're going to pick it up with what was some of the after the disaster responses by the utility companies. Bill Yeld is going to be on the agenda, who is the public affairs for Huntsville Utilities. And, of course, everybody was very interested in how they were responding and when they were going to get their power turned back on. Now, that was paramount in everyone's mind. When am I going to get my lights back on, my refrigerator running to save my food, my air conditioning running, and all of those things. So we think we followed all the way through the law enforcement agencies with the curfew and the role that played. We have Mr. Jim Tice, who's the programming director from WDRM. They went almost round-the-clock talk radio, listening to responses from people who were sharing information. And we're going to hear from Shirley Crutcher from the Red Cross, who's going to talk about what their role was and also the role of all the other volunteer agencies, all the way through the restoration of power and those type of things. So we're going to follow the whole disaster from the forecasting all the way through to some of the disaster recovery from the volunteers and the utility companies. So we think it's a fine agenda. We're going to hear from some of the other organizations that were involved. We're going to have one of the local cellular companies talk about how the cellular system was able to maintain its operation and restore its operation, because everyone was very dependent upon their cell phones because a lot of the power and the landlines were down. So we think it's an all-star agenda filled with the people who were responsible for the initial search and rescue operations, then all the way through the recovery operations. So we're excited about it, and a lot of these speakers are very anxious to get out and tell their story with all the lessons learned that they can now speak from, hey, now we know what we did. We did a lot of things well, but there are things that we can do better, and how do we learn from this?
Well, it does sound very exciting and very interesting. What do you anticipate your audience will bring away from this symposium?
I think they'll bring away each other's experiences. I guess you could call it sort of like a collective learning environment where people get to interact with others, see the way that the others chose to deal with problems, and then learn from that, and also come up with ways where there's an improved interaction between the various segments. I think they all learned lessons, so the idea is to get those out on the table and with everyone in the room at the same time and be better prepared for the next time.
Now, honestly, I'm seeing this being effective on two levels. I believe you just responded to the level of just gathering this group of distinguished speakers together. They're going to hear each other, and that's going to really be wonderful for the rest of us that live out in the world. Will there be an opportunity, however, for the audience to ask questions also of some of these speakers?
Absolutely. We've asked our speakers the normal speaking slot is 30 minutes, but we've asked them to reserve at least 5 minutes at the end for questions from the audience. And I'm sure our audience will have a lot of questions for things that happened, and why do we have to have a curfew, and why did it take so long to get power to this location versus this location, and who was responsible for clearing the debris, and how did the why didn't we hear more about different aspects of this disaster? And we want to encourage them to ask the questions. By and large, I think that and if you really, I think you'll hear about the different organizations we have and how well prepared they were for this disaster. And we really, I think the losses, particularly the warning was such that, unfortunately we did have some loss of life and some injuries, but it was far less than it could have been had there not been the warning. So I think that people will get their questions answered on why things happened the way they did, who responded in what areas, and I think when it's all said and done, they'll be quite proud of the response of all the professional emergency response organizations we have here in Madison County.
Yes, we are. Is this symposium geared just for members of Afcea or other technical professional groups, or can someone from the general public attend and learn from this event?
It's open to the general public. I believe the general public will learn a lot. And the presenters will learn a lot from the general public. And then finally, people from the general public will go out and talk to, in the scheme of 6 degrees of separation, if we have 120 people and they all go out and talk to at least 5 or 6 people, we'll get the word out, and then there'll be another feedback mechanism to decision makers and people responsible for delivering these services.
Okay. Well, then I think at this stage we need to have a recap. Reservations need to be made, so we need a web address.
Yes, the web address where you can find this, it's a very long web address, and it's on a flyer, but it's if you go to www.activa.com/booking.cfm ? BEVAID = 222284. That will take you to the site. I don't know that we have a shorter link to get to that site. Do we, Mike?
No, there's not a shorter way. We need a better way to get the announcement out.
What about the Afcea website? If someone came there, could they then be linked?
I think we have an Afcea Facebook page, and
Okay.
I'll put it on the Facebook page so that people can link to the registration.
Wonderful. And again, the event is on
It's
the 15th.
Thursday, September 15th, 8 o'clock a.m. to 5 p.m., and the fee is $100 for registration, and that does include a lunch, and we hope to have some exhibits set up there as well, so you can see some of the systems and products that these different organizations provided during the disaster response.
And I think Kenny mentioned it, but all the proceeds go into scholarships since we're a not-for-profit organization. All of the proceeds will go into scholarships for kids, generally in high school.
Wonderful. Anything else you wish to share?
I think that's about it. You've covered it, Dave, and we just hope that a lot of people will turn out, because I think that if you want to see what really happened behind the scenes and what contributed to those press conferences from the actual people who were making the decisions and leading the response during that disaster, you won't find a better forum to gain that information than this symposium.
Well, thank you very much, Mike and Ken.
It's been my pleasure.
Viewers, we greatly appreciate you checking out this interview.